Hello and welcome. Tonight, after much pressure over rising insecurity and killings in the country, President Muhammadu Buhari replaces service chiefs, appoints new command officers. Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises concern over rising debts and insecurity, vows to continue disbursements to reflate the economy. After days of protests, federal government approves special allowance for NIMC workers for extra registration duties. And UK COVID-19 death toll rises above 100,000. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he takes responsibility for government's actions. Plus, we'll have business, sports, and later international news from our London studios.
On business news tonight, International Monetary Fund raises global economic growth forecast for 2021, but warns that poverty is on the rise.
On sports news tonight, with 18 days to the National Sports Festival, Oyo State Edo says there are no funds for the games.
And from Abuja, National Assembly directs Ministry of Health to suspend further action and plans to spend 10 billion naira for vaccine production.
It looked like a hard decision to take, but after a long-drawn controversy and an ending call for the sack of the service chiefs, the president today made a change, sacking the service chiefs and replacing them with younger officers. Now, this is the first time President Muhammadu Buhari is changing the guard since becoming the commander-in-chief in 2015. The new service chiefs are Major General Leo Irabo, who is the new Chief of Defense Staff. Major General Ibrahim Atahiru takes over as the Chief of Army Staff. Rear Admiral A.Z. Gambo is the new Chief of Naval Staff, while Air Vice Marshal Oladayo Amao is appointed Chief of Air Staff. Earlier on, the President's Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, was our guest on Politics Today, where he insists that the President took the decision to remove the service chiefs when he needed to do so.
They just felt it was time to rejig the system. Have fresh energy, have fresh blood, have fresh ideas. But it should be on record that he commended them for their services to the country. And so these ones that are living today have been there for about 5 years and 5 months. It's a matter of doing what he feels is right at a given time. You know, a number of times the president has said the service chiefs could do better. Some other times he has said, yes, they were doing their level best, but they could do better. Recall that there was a time particularly he commended the Air Force for their role in the anti-insurgency war. So the fact that they had to leave today does not mean that they had failed. There are certain appointments that are subject to federal character. For instance, the Constitution says that there must be a minister from each state of the country. But there are certain appointments that are also now subject to federal character. And one is in the security. In the security, they are not subject to federal character. It's about competence. It's about ability to deliver. So the president will appoint whoever he thinks is fit and proper and will deliver to the best level for the country and for Nigerians.
Here are some of the things you need to know about the new service chiefs. The 4 of them are of the rank of a Major General and its equivalent in the Navy and Air Force. All 4 of them have also been frontline senior officers in the fight against terrorism in the Northeast. Let's dig deeper into the profile of the new service chiefs.
Change of guards as Major General Lucky Irabo, who once served as theater commander in the Northeast region between 2016 and 2017, takes over as the new Chief of Defense Staff from General Gabriel Olonishakin. He hails from Agbo in Delta State. Major General Irabo until now was the Chief of Defense Training and Operations at the Defense Headquarters, Armed Forces of Nigeria. He is an alumnus of the Ghana Armed Forces Staff College, Ghana, the National Defense College, Bangladesh, and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government Executive Program in the United States. The new Chief of Defense Staff was formerly the Theater Commander of Operation Lafayette Dole in northeast Nigeria, as well as Force Commander Multinational Joint Task Force in the Lake Chad Basin area. The operations focused on counterterrorism, counterinsurgency. Taking over from the former Chief of Army Staff is Major General Ibrahim Atahiru. General Ibrahim Atahiru was appointed to lead the offensive against Boko Haram in Northeast region in May 2017. He took over from General Lucky Irabo. Until his appointment as theater commander, General Atahiru at various times served as Director Army Public Relations, Brigade Commander 43 Battalion Calabar, and GOC 82 Division Enugu. For the Navy, Rear Admiral Awa Zoberu Gambo is a new chief. He was born on the 22nd of April 1966 and hails from Nasarawa, LGA in Kano State. He enlisted into the Nigerian Navy on the 24th of September 1984 as a member of Regular Corps 36 and was commissioned sub-lieutenant on the 24th of September 1988. The new Chief of Naval Staff holds a PGD in Transport Management and a Master's degree in Transport Management. He is also a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, a fellow of the Certified Institute of Shipping, a fellow of the Institute of Corporate Administration of Nigeria, as well as a fellow of the National Defense College, South Africa. Air Vice Marshal Isiaka Oladayo Amao, who takes over as the new Chief of the Air Staff, was born on the 14th September 1965 in Enugu. He hails from Oshogbo local government area of Osun State, Nigeria. He enlisted into the Nigerian Air Force on the 19th of January 1984 as a member of the 35th Nigerian Defense Academy Regular Course and was commissioned as pilot officer on the 20th of December 1986. Until his appointment, he was the Commandant, Armed Forces Resettlement Center in Lagos.
Even though there's been a lot of clamor for the removal of the service chiefs from all sections of the country, not many saw the president's action coming. So how have the service chiefs fared in the last 5 years? While many would say they've contributed their quota, others believe they'd run out of ideas in the fight against Boko Haram. Our correspondent, Oreoluwa Shonibare, reports.
Nigeria, under our administration,
President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015, listing the priorities of his administration.
We face enormous challenges: insecurity, pervasive corruption, the hitherto unending and seemingly impossible fuel and power shortages are the immediate concerns.
With security topping the list, the team to take on the task of keeping the nation safe was picked. General Abayemi Olonishakin as Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Toka Buratai as Chief of Army Staff, Rear Admiral Ibok Ete Ibas as Chief of Naval Staff, and Air Vice Marshal Sadiq Abubakar as Chief of Air Staff. At the time of their appointment, the northern region was under siege, with Boko Haram laying claim to territories. The service chiefs took on the challenge, relocating the military command and control to the northeast, albeit temporarily. And for the most part scored valuable points by reclaiming areas occupied by the terrorists. Things took a turn when from nowhere, splinter groups in the form of bandits, kidnappers and rustlers emerged to put a strain on the efforts of the military, who at this time needed massive funding to galvanize the mission. Financial injections were made with a boost of $593 million in 2017 to purchase Tucano aircrafts and equipment from the United States of America, which are yet to be delivered. And then an additional $1 billion was approved a year later for the prosecution of the insurgency war. However, all that funding appears to have done very little, and as the terror increased, encouragement and support from all corners began to wane. Calls for their sack filled the air, and the matter was discussed at the National Assembly.
The service chiefs we have are not showing good example, and it's hard time we stop painting it. they have outlived their usefulness.
For a country like Nigeria with its vast terrain and semi-porous borders, developing strategies to defeat insurgents can be tasking. And anyone saddled with the responsibility must understand that how much accolade they receive at the end is based on their ability to deliver. Orolu Ashonibare, Channels Television News.
And the new service chiefs have their jobs cut out for them. No doubt expectations from Nigerians are high, and the earlier they begin tackling the challenges, the better. They have on their table the issues of banditry, terrorism, kidnapping, and upholding the territorial sovereignty of the country. Our next report takes a look at the task before the new military chiefs.
Starting with Boko Haram, the battle in the northeast is not new, but appears to be a key performance indicator for the military, as Nigeria continues to intensify its effort in tackling both the security and humanitarian crisis in the region. Boosting the morale of the soldiers on the ground is expected to be high on their to-do list. Banditry and kidnapping are also familiar security challenges in the country. The new military leadership may not be walking into an unfamiliar terrain. The abduction of more than 340 boys in December of last year at a school in the president's home state threw the nation into déjà vu before the boys were released. Averting a recurrence of such daring criminality may be top priority. Nigeria has been facing prolonged violent clashes between farmers and cattle herders, and the conflicts have been triggered by disputes over land, water resources, and what grazing patterns should be adopted. From the north to the south, the seed of discord between farmers and herders keeps sprouting, with the police proving almost incapable of tackling such security complexities. The new service chiefs are expected to consolidate on the wins already recorded and break new ground. The military has made some gains with aerial bombardment, but there are also largely no boots on the ground to secure conquered territories. There are problems of piracy on the waterways and restiveness in the Niger Delta. A proper handshake between the old and the new guard may help in sustaining the gains.
In the nation's capital, residents say they are hopeful that the change will provide the much-needed boost in the fight against insecurity. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, feels the pulse of the city's residents and now reports.
We're right here in front of the headquarters of the Nigerian Army, and we're told that there are a lot of meetings going on behind closed doors. The whole place is a beehive of activities following the change of the service chiefs. We're going to be taking the views of regular Nigerians, former military personnel, and lawmakers on what they make of the change of the service chiefs. We begin with retired Lieutenant Commander Solomon Eso, who retired from the Navy 21 years ago. For him, the new Chief of Naval Staff is just what the country needs.
Staff, right? Rear Admiral A.Z. Gambo is somebody I've worked with extensively and is somebody who has the grip, of the rest of the officers. And particularly the fact that he's a young, smart, very senior officer. And we know him in the service as a no-nonsense officer. And I think coming in is going to inject new blood into the Navy particularly. I think
from the National Assembly, the new service chiefs are charged to perform better than their predecessors.
Those people coming should be ready to take over and improve on what they made on ground.
Nigerians don't deserve to have what we're having now. We need to have a better security infrastructure in our country.
For some, the change is long overdue.
Well, we are asking Mr. President, since people they are asking in the country, Mr. President, they will leave the service chief because the time is due. So, but I think we thank Mr. President on that particular matter.
The new service chiefs should work much active than the old ones because they are not doing anything. I've not seen the killing at the north is much, and they are really complaining.
For me, they are belated because there are other senior officers who are ready to take over from these people, but they have been denied this opportunity because they are long overdue to be changed.
For others, changing the service chiefs does not guarantee better security for the country.
Bringing in new sets of service chiefs might not still get what we want. It is the people that they work with. It trickles down to the last soldier. If the last soldier's welfare is not properly checked, he would not deliver, and they can snitch. So this entire structure needs to be checked out.
The new service chiefs have their work cut out for them as the country grapples with nationwide insecurity, banditry, and kidnapping. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, more on security matters, plus details of the CBN's Monetary Policy Committee decision today. We'll open up discussions on this with the Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. All in the moment. You join us again. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. After much pressure over rising insecurity and killings in the country, President Muhammadu Buhari replaces the service chiefs, appoints new command officers. The new service chiefs are Major General Leo Irabo, who is the new Chief of Defense Staff. Major General Ibrahim Atahiru takes over as Chief of Army Staff. Rear Admiral A.Z. Gambo is the new Chief of Naval Staff, while Air Vice Marshal Oladayo Amao is now Chief of Air Staff. Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raises concern over rising debts and insecurity, vows to continue disbursements to reflate the economy. After days of protest, federal government approves special allowances for NIMC workers for extra registration duties. And UK COVID-19 death toll rises above 100,000. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he takes responsibility for government's action. Borno State is the theatre of war against terrorism in the northeast, and this explains why the governor of the state, Babagana Zulum, at different fora, demanded the replacement of the service chiefs and the rejigging of the security architecture in the war against terrorism. Well, now that his request has seen the light of day with the new appointment of service chiefs, we reached out to him to get his response to the sack of the former service chiefs and the task before the new ones.
The service chief has been with us for the last 4, 5, 6 years, and I think they have contributed their quota to the development of the nation. Everything has an appointed time by God. It is. So therefore, we're wishing them all the best. And for those that are coming, or those that are recently being appointed, we are also wishing them good luck, especially General Irabo and Atahiru. Both have worked in the theater. Atahiru was a theater commander here. Irabo was a theater commander as well as the MNJTF head in Jamaica. They have the experiences. So, God willing, we can get maximum benefit from them.
And as we look at new appointments in the military, 2 operatives of the Nigeria Police Force have been killed by suspected assassins in Taraba State. The policemen were said to have been killed in Jen community of Karim Lamido local government area while on their way to their duty posts. The police spokesperson in the state, David Missel, told Channels Television that the incident occurred at an isolated area on Karim Lamido Jen Road when the policeman, a sergeant and a constable stopped to rectify a fault noticed on the vehicle they were driving in. He said the armed men suddenly emerged from the bush and opened fire on them. Mr. Missel said investigations into the killing have since commenced. That Nigeria has entered into recession owing to the impact of COVID-19 is no news. But what's new, however, is the fact that the central bank will continue its targeted disbursements to reflate the economy. Other interventions by the Apex Bank to spur growth in the economy include a reduction of the interest rate for its COVID-19 intervention credit facility from 9 to 5%, as well as an extension of repayment by 1 year. The governor of the central bank, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, while speaking at the Monetary Policy Committee meeting in Abuja, explains that the move will help guard against the impact of economic recession caused by COVID-19.
It's the first Monetary Policy Committee meeting for the year 2021. Before this meeting, figures from the National Bureau of Statistics reveals economic indices that are not good for the country. This include the rise in inflation rate to 15.7% in December 2020, the highest rate recorded in 3 years. This is not to mention the economic recession in the country. But the central bank is adopting measures to drive growth.
The committee's current priority remains to quicken the pace of the recovery through sustained and targeted spending by the fiscal authority, supported by the central bank's interventions. In this light, it was thought necessary to increase collaboration with the fiscal authorities by providing complementary spending to finance productive ventures in a bid to improve aggregate supply and reduce prices.
There are also concerns raised by the Monetary Committee. These include how to address issues of rising debts, insecurity, and how to increase investment.
The committee thus called on the government to redouble its efforts at strengthening infrastructural efficiency and address the emerging security challenges in the country. In addition to this, the committee called on the government to explore the option of effective partnership with the private sector to improve funding sources necessary to address the huge infrastructural financing deficit. The committee expressed concern over the rising public debt stock as recurrent expenditure remain relatively high compared with capital expenditure, thus signaling future debt servicing challenges.
The economic outlook for the year 2021 remains gloomy, both at the global and domestic front. The Monetary Policy Committee is, however, hopeful that the procurement of vaccines remains key to reducing the impact of the coronavirus on the economy.
Let's get some insight into today's decision now. I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by the CEO, Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10.
Thanks for having me.
You're smiling again because the last time we talked about it, you said the more things change,
the more they
remain the same. Here we are.
There we are.
What do you make of it?
To be honest with you, this was a more sober, honest, and objective communique. The analysts' opinions and those of the policymakers were more aligned. So that is where we agree. But I respectfully disagree on the therapy. Okay. While the diagnosis was very clear that there was a growth problem, but also there was more of an inflation problem. And that the therapy for inflation must include an rearrangement of the interest rate structure, which is important. And that is what it is. So, like the slides will show you, the chickens have come home to roost. Last time we had this meeting, the committee was very specific that at the end of the fourth quarter, we will get positive growth. At this time, but now they're more cautiously optimistic, more realistic, and in fact, I was impressed with that candor. Now let us look at where the facts and what the facts tell us. You see, that's the W curve there, which shows you that growth, we are going to recover from negative growth sometime in the second quarter, maybe the third quarter, but more like second and third quarter of 2021. If we get there earlier, good, but I won't hang my hat on that. Then this thing called inflation, which we call the thief of value. And I want to express this so that Nigerian viewers can say, if you kept 1,000 naira under your mattress on January 1st, 2019, in 2019, you would have lost 12% of that. And in 2020, if you didn't take it out and invest it, you will lose another 16%. So in all, you will lose 28%. Your 1,000 naira you kept under your mattress will only buy you 730 naira worth of goods in January 2021. If you kept $1,000 under your mattress, 2 years later, you'll get $997. You would have lost only $3. If you kept 1,000 cedis, Ghanaian cedis, under your mattress, you would have 821 cedis. You would have lost 18%. So inflation, like Milton Friedman says, inflation is legislation. No, inflation is legislation without, without taxation, without legislation. That's what it's called. Now, why is inflation high in Nigeria? There are many reasons, but one of the key reasons is because money supply growth is increasing rapidly. And if you look at the graphs, show you very clearly that in the last 4 quarters, we've had money supply growing at 7%, 12%, 13%, 21%, and 26%. And inflation has gone all the way from 12 all the way to 15.75, and food inflation approximately 20%. But that's not the only culprit. You have devaluation effect. Currency was adjusted. Central bank alluded to that. Logistics and distribution costs, Boko Haram, supply chain disruptions, ways and means advances.
Well, how much of that inflation is owing to borrowing, federal government borrowing, for instance, keeping your eye on what Fitch was saying about the percentage?
Well, ways and means advances typically is printing money, okay? And when you print money, that's what happens. However, there's nothing wrong with the central bank lending money to the federal government. That is their job. They are the lender of last resort to the banks and banker of the government. However, at what price? If the government is borrowing at 0.5% or 1%, and the rate of inflation is 16%, you are losing money by going to bed. Wow. And that is the major cause. It's not the only cause. It's not a binary choice. It's not either or. It is a major contributor. It's as old as you may know. Milton Friedman, everybody has said it, that once you increase money supply and goods output remains static, this is what happens. So what the central bank is saying, we need to increase output. We need to, but the time between when you start the policies on increasing output and when you get the result, it's going to take some time. That's why monetary policy is for very short tactical responses, while fiscal policy is for long-term structural shifts. But the two are happening at the same time. Luckily, there's a collaboration and there's an alignment. So you're going to see, and that's why we see the W curve. Output is going to increase, especially when the central bank begins to release more foreign exchange into the market. Manufacturers will grow. So where is it going to come from? The growth is going to come from, one, first of all, inflation is going to be corrected because you reduce M2 growth. You change the interest rate structure so that interest rates get closer to the rate of inflation. And you can see from our countries, look at South Africa. South Africa's inflation rate is 3.1. Its interest rate is 3.4585. South Africa has a 16-year low inflation, even though the economy is actually struggling, right? So what do we need to do? The areas that we can, agric, manufacturing, petroleum, trade. These are the areas that will grow, and you are going to see agric actually grew by 1.39 thanks to the Anchor Borrows program. But you see, the quantum is not enough to move the needle. So how does this affect the ordinary man sitting down, the viewers out there? Basically, we looked at 10 products. Of these 10 products, in the last 12 months, from January 2020 to 2021, the average increase in price of these products was about 72%, even though inflation is 15.75. What are these products? Yam went from 600 to 1,000 naira, 66%. Gari went from 7,200 to 13,700, 90%. Beans went from 15,000 to 22,000, 40%. Onions has come down to normal, thanks to Central Bank Anchor's Borrow program, 25,000 to 40,000, 60%. Look at pepper. Pepper is 6,000, gone up to 14,000, 133%. Nigerians are spicy, they like their food tasty. Flour has gone from 8,500 to 14,500, and cement has gone up by 44%. So, in conclusion, let us say this. The good news is that external reserves, central bank has been able to make the external reserves increase to $36.52 billion, which is very comfortable.
So in terms of our outlook now, yeah.
Now, oil prices are at $56, and that's good. And Anchor Borrowers program continues to do. But the difficulties remain forex rationing. We've got to stop that. The exchange rate pressures, we need to have exchange rate flexibility. And external debt, like the central bank alluded to, we need to manage that. So, in closing, GDP numbers are going to come out on February 22nd. Our estimates are that it will be about -4, but bringing the average for the year to something like -3 and something. General inflation is due out on February 16th. February 16th, we think it's going to be 16%. Not coincidence, 16 and 16. Currency pressures, the central bank is going to manage that, and that's in control. The CBN may likely, all things being equal, move interest rates the other way because the interest rate gap of 16 and 1% is too wide. So, generally speaking, it's not a bad day, but nothing dramatic is going to change until sometime next month.
Always a pleasure to speak to you, CEO of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rewane. Thanks for that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And when the news at 10 returns, National Assembly orders Ministry of Health to suspend further action on plans to spend 10 billion naira for vaccine production. Please join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Let's cross over to Abuja now. And here's Linda Akigbe. Linda.
Hello, Ijoma. Welcome to Abuja. Workers of the National Identity Management Commission should have cause to celebrate as the federal government approves the payment of special allowance for the registration of national identity number, which they described as an extra duty. The decision was made after a closed-door meeting between the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Pantami, and the leadership of the Workers' Union. Meanwhile, residents of Gwagwalada in the nation's capital are asking the commission to increase the registration centers within the area.
Prospective enrollees in Gwagwalada Area Council waiting for an opportunity to be registered for the national identity number.
If you come here before they even start work today, it's almost 10:30 before they start work, and there are a crowd of people outside the gate. And all still we are here suffering with it. Old people are here, elderly people are here, everybody is suffering here. I've been coming here for complete 2 weeks now. I've not got what I want. I lost my phone. They stole my phone. I cannot get SIM card. I cannot get welcome back. I cannot buy new line. And I'm here to go just national ID card. I can't get it.
People used to come here very early in the morning, like 4 o'clock. They'll come and queue up. At the end of the day now, what the people are normally doing is that because of the congestion, they will give you, like if I come today, they will say, okay, today is my first day of coming. They'll give me 5 days. They will give me number. Then they say after 5 days, the date they gave me, then I will come and do it.
This is the only center in the entire area council which covers several kilometers and has a population of over 400,000 persons. However, the center is unable to cater for the number of residents that come here daily for the exercise.
Even with this COVID-19 protocol, because of how people are choked, it's not really looking good. Because the facility here, I think this is the only facility here that people can get access to register their ID.
I want government to give them more system, to provide them more system, and also to give them, to employ more staffs so that they can attend to many people.
The center has only 2 computers for the exercise, and their enrollees are orderly as the process is going on without hitches. Since the decentralization of the exercise 9 days ago, the Gwagwalada Center has achieved an average of 100 enrollments per day. In the meantime, the Workers' Union of the National Identity Management Commission met with the Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Isa Pantami, 3 days to the expiration of the deadline issued by the workers. The meeting, which was held behind closed doors for over 2 hours, agreed to set up a committee to resolve the lingering welfare issues. The management of the commission also agreed to pay the special allowance, which was removed following the introduction of the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System.
The National Assembly Joint Committee on Health has asked the Ministry of Health to suspend further action on the plans to utilize the 10 billion naira released to them by the Ministry of Finance to fund production of COVID-19 vaccines. The committee took the decision after it expressed dissatisfaction with the explanation of the Minister of Health, Osagie Ehanire, on how the money will be utilized. The minister had stated at a meeting with members of the committee that the money was part of an agreement between the federal government and the foreign partner, May and Baker PLC, for the production of bio-vaccines.
This 10 billion is just given to you. With due respect for what you are giving us, you don't have a specific detailed plan for it. And our decision for now, which I will come out to move, is that you can't spend it. We'll put it, we'll write it, until when you provide us with a satisfactory answer. And then we will want, when you provide us the details, then we invite all necessary persons. We will read that one. But based on what we've had now, you don't have a detailed plan. That's my submission.
The second wave of COVID-19 has created a medical oxygen crisis in the country. However, private sector coalition against COVID-19 is intervening in the area of critical oxygen supply as the country continues to fight the virus. The leadership of the Private Intervention Initiative says it has provided millions of PPEs, testing supplies, as well as palliatives for 10.7 million people, and also provided risk communication in support of the messaging campaigns to keep Nigerians aware and protected from the virus.
With COVID-19, the use of oxygen as a medical treatment has spiked. These tanks are not only scarce, but extremely valuable, especially for those who need help breathing. In Lagos alone, the demand for oxygen has gone from 70 to more than 300 oxygen tanks per day. There's an obvious gap, and that's where the private sector coalition against COVID-19, CACOVID, is stepping in, this time through African Foundries Limited, producer of steel reinforcement bars.
As you all know, we are experiencing a severe oxygen supply problem in the country with this second wave that we're in. CACOVID, through one of our founding members, Mr. Raj Gupta of African Industries Group, has already stepped up and has been providing oxygen in Abuja, mainly to the National Hospital and Gwagwalada Specialist Hospital and the FCT.
CACOVID says it has purchased over 1,000 cylinders, and these cylinders are supplied free for treatment of COVID-19 patients at different isolation centers.
This year marks our 50th anniversary. We manufacture oxygen as part of our steel making process. So when we heard and we saw that people were literally dying due to lack of oxygen, we had to step in and offer this and adjust our machines so that it can make the medical grade oxygen.
A tour around the facility shows the company's readiness to deliver on its promise. Making appropriate technological adjustment to their plant, the company is able to produce medical oxygen with the required purity standard of 99.6%. With an investment of $250 million on this plant at Ogijo area of Ogun State, African Foundries says it will continue to support Nigeria, the country where it's been operating for 50 years.
That's all from Abuja. Back to you, Joma.
Thanks a lot, Linda. The unrest in some parts of Oyo State continued today after one of the properties owned by a youth leader in Soka area of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, Mr. Sunday Adeyemo, also known as Sunday Igboho, was set on fire by hoodlums. Sources say the attackers, who gained access into the compound around 2 a.m., stormed the area, shooting sporadically before setting the house ablaze. The state police spokesperson, Mr. Gbenga Fadeyi, who confirmed the incident, says an assessment of the level of damage is on and investigations have commenced while the police is on the trail of the hoodlums. Briefing newsmen afterwards, Sunday Igboho estimates the loss to be in millions of naira. He stated that he was notified of the fire long after it began. He also pointed accusing fingers at those who oppose his views.
Wàhálà tí mò ń fà lórí àwọn Fúlàní ẹ̀sìn mo rí pé wọ́n ti fẹ́ kó sílùú bọ̀ láti mọ fi ba orúkọ mi jẹ́ kó lè mú kí n weak irọ́ ni wọ́n dẹ̀ pa gbogbo ìtàn gbogbo táwọn olóṣèlú ń dá lórí ọ̀rọ̀ mi yẹn irọ́ ni wọ́n ń pa gbogbo ohun tí Fẹ́mi Òdòǹdú àbí kí ni mọ́kùnrin yẹn rí náà òjòdú yẹn àbójòdú ni wọ́n pè mi ò ní nǹkan kan pọ̀ pẹ̀lú ẹ̀ mi ò mọ́rí so gbogbo ohun tó lọ́hùn yẹn irọ́ ni wọ́n ń pa àfi tí gbogbo Fúlàní herdsmen tó ń pa àwọn fámìlì mi tó bá kó lórí ilẹ̀ bàbá wa látó lè mi àti wọn tó níjà kò dẹ̀ sí olóṣèlú kankan tó lè fẹ́ mi lówó lórí nǹkan tí mò ń ṣe torí mi ò gbogbo jọ́tẹ̀mí àti èmi àtàwọn Fúlàní ajínigbé tán ti ń já àwọn bàbá mi gbé láti ibijọ́ mẹ́ta yìí tí ì bá yẹ pé mo lọ́bẹ̀ tọ́lọ́run fún mi ṣe láti lọ́bẹ̀ ìjọba kankan ọ̀ràn àwọn pípù yẹn lọ́wọ́ náà wọn ọ̀sẹ̀ mọ́ pa wọ́n bẹ́ẹ̀ ẹnìkan kò lọ́bẹ̀ ìgbà tí mo tó lọ ní gbogbo ayé tó mọ tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ mo dẹ̀ gbọ́dọ̀ lọ torí ìlú mi níbẹ̀ fámìlì mi ni wọ́n ìlà tí ń bẹ lójú bàbá Bóròdé ní ń bẹ lójú mi mẹ́rin bí mẹ́ta ń bí fámìlì mi ni wọ́n èmi ò dẹ̀ lè lajú olójú òní lajú ẹlẹ́kìtà lùpọ̀ kó sí lóhun tó mú mi lọ́bẹ̀ olóṣèlú tó bá lè sọ pé mo gbowó lọ́wọ́ òun kọ́ bọ́ta kó sọ kí gbogbo ayé rí i pé òun lòun fún mi lówó lórí nǹkan tí mò ń ṣe ẹnìkan kò fún mi lówó ohun tí mò ń sọ ni pé kí àlàáfíà jọba lórí ilẹ̀ àwọn bàbá wa.
Let's take a look at some business news now. Here's Teniola Shobowale.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Welcome to Business News. The International Monetary Fund has raised its global economic growth projection for 2021. This is coming a day after the United Nations released a similar positive forecast in its World Economic Situation and Prospects report. In its latest World Economic Outlook, the IMF put global growth estimate for the year at 5.5%, which is slightly higher than the 5.2% it forecast made in October last year. However, the International Financial Institution warns that the world economy may continue to face exceptional uncertainty as close to 90 million people are likely to fall below the extreme poverty this year. The African Development Bank has launched the Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, which will help mobilize $25 billion for increased action on climate change adaptation across the continent. The announcement was made during the Climate Adaptation Summit 2021, hosted by the government of the Netherlands and the Global Center on Adaptation. In a statement released today, the president of the AFDB, Mr. Akinwumi Adesina, also mentioned that the bank's Youth Adaptation Flagship program will unlock $3 billion for the youth, support 10,000 youth-led SMEs in climate resilience, and build capacity for 1 million youth on climate adaptation. Well, let's check in on the stock market now. The local bourse has maintained positive posture for a second consecutive session with a strong rally as more companies announce closed periods while investors await the release of 2020 full-year earnings result from major listed companies. Ini John Mekwa tells us more.
The much-awaited MPC decision has been taken, and yes, monetary policy rate remains at 11.5%, but it hardly impacted investors' decision at the equities market today. Instead, investors intensified their bargain hunting for high-value equities, which are currently at new lows, keeping the bull in the markets. And the all-share index increased by 1.21%. Airtel Africa, which largely lifted the market on Monday, did it again today with a wider 65 naira jump on its share price. The telco giant was not alone. Its contemporary MTN Nigeria also recorded 0.53% increase, which also contributed to the nearly 260 billion naira gain on the equity capitalization. Now, looking at the sectoral activity chart, the consumer goods counter posted the highest gain of 0.53%, while the industrial goods sector was up by 0.25%, and it's all thanks to Lafarge. Now, on the other hand, the oil and gas sector closed in the red, down by more than 5%. Investors did a lot of profit-taking on Seplat and Oando. Meanwhile, the overall volume of shares traded for today was higher by more than 10% against the previous session at 467 million units in nearly 6,000 transactions. Today's session ended widely positive with 32 gainers led by RT Briscoe against 19 losers led by John Halls. Well, it's been a positive start in the week as investors await more corporate earning results from listed equities, and we look forward to the outcome of the midweek session. Back to you.
And that's business news tonight. It's back to you, Ijeoma.
Thank you, Teniola. The United Kingdom has become the first country in Europe to record more than 100,000 coronavirus-related deaths. Prime Minister Boris Johnson says he's deeply sorry for every life that's been lost, and he takes full responsibility for the government's actions in its handling of the pandemic. Over now to our London studios, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The EU has warned that it could restrict exports of vaccines made in the bloc after AstraZeneca and Pfizer-BioNTech have both said they cannot supply the expected numbers of jabs. The warning has come as the European bloc fears that supply reductions could seriously slow down its inoculation drive. The EU Health Commissioner has said that the EU will take any action required to protect its citizens and rights.
And full transparency concerning the export of vaccines from the EU.
Ms. Kyriakides has criticised AstraZeneca's decision to slow supplies of its vaccine after the company announced that it will not meet the agreed supply targets, resulting in a 60% cut of the expected doses. The US House of Representatives has sent an article of impeachment against former President Donald Trump to the Senate for trial. Mr. Trump has been accused of inciting an insurrection in a speech to his supporters that led to the deadly assault on the US Capitol.
Right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
If convicted, Mr. Trump would be disqualified from ever serving again as president. Unlike the first impeachment, several Republicans, including the minority leader Senator Mitch McConnell, have signaled that they are open to convicting the former president. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has said it will push forward on a plan to make anti-slavery activist Harriet Tubman the face of a new $20 bill.
The Treasury Department is taking steps to resume efforts to put Harriet Tubman on the front of the new $20 notes.
Ms. Tubman would replace the former President Andrew Jackson, who was a slave owner. The move would make Ms. Tubman the first African-American to appear on a US banknote and the first woman for more than 100 years. The plan was first announced in 2016 by former President Barack Obama, but the Trump administration decided to delay the efforts. A protest by Indian farmers in the capital New Delhi to demand the repeal of 3 farm laws has turned violent. Tens of thousands of farmers clashed with police and have broken through barricades around the capital and entered the grounds of Delhi's historic Red Fort. Police can be seen in footage using tear gas and baton charging the protesters. For more than 2 months, the farmers have been stationed in a huge protest camp in the outskirts of the capital. They say that the bills are designed to benefit private buyers and will leave them at the mercy of big retailers. Last Friday, they rejected an offer by the government to defer the laws for 18 months. The Netherlands has seen the 3rd consecutive night of unrest as protesters clashed with police over coronavirus lockdown and a nighttime curfew. The police have arrested more than 180 people in several cities after rioters demolished bus stops, lit fires, and launched fireworks and stones. The scenes in the country have been described by police officials as the worst rioting in 40 years.
We doen dat omdat we vechten tegen.
Prime Minister Mark Rutte condemned the riots, calling them criminal violence. Protests in Tunisia have reignited after reports that a young man injured during the clashes last week died in hospital. The family of the man has said that he was hit by a tear gas canister after joining the protests that have erupted this month on the anniversary of Tunisia's 2011 revolution. The country has seen a recent wave of nighttime clashes due to the aggravated economy and a lack of jobs. And finally, a Russian company has developed a flying taxi that will solve the problem of transporting passengers in a modern metropolis. The aircraft, powered by batteries, will be going through testing in September, and if successful, the product will be launched into mass production by the end of 2021. The company, called Hoversurf, has said that the same model has already successfully passed a number of tests in Russia and the UAE. Hoversurf's ambitious goal is to be able to ensure the possibility of flights over Moscow by 2023 to 2025. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Flying taxi. Thanks, Simon. For some sports, here's Ayotunde Balogun.
Right, and that's in sports news, and with barely 18 days to the 20th edition of the National Sports Festival Edo 2020, it seems there could be another postponement, as the host governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, says there are no funds for the games for now. Mr. Obaseki made this position during a meeting with a federal government delegation at the government house in Benin City, the Edo State capital, who are currently assessing the state's readiness for the games slated for February the 14th through to the 24th of this year. The World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has cleared the president of the Nigeria Football Federation, Mr. Amaju Pinnick, to contest in this year's FIFA Council election. In a memo released by the World Football Governing Body's Review Committee, certified Pinnick eligible to contest for the position of the council member. If he wins, he becomes the third Nigerian after Oyo Oyo in 1980 to 1988 and Amos Adamo 2006 to 2010 to be elected into the council. The International Paralympic Committee spokesman Craig Spence has confirmed that some athletes have already started being vaccinated against COVID-19 ahead of the release of new guidelines that he says will show that Tokyo Games organizers are in a much better position than the public believes. More than 15,000 competitors are expected at the July the 23rd through to August the 8th Games, postponed from last year because of the pandemic. And that's a wrap on sports news. Is back to you, Jomo.
Thanks a lot, Ayotunde. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari today replaced the service chiefs and appointed new command officers. The new service chiefs are Major General Leo Irabo, who is the new Chief of Defense Staff. Major General Ibrahim Atahiru takes over as the Chief of Army Staff. Rear Admiral A.Z. Gambo is the new Chief of Naval Staff, while Air Vice Marshal Oladayo Amao is now Chief of Air Staff. Also today, the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee raised concern over rising debt and insecurity and vowed to continue disbursements to reflate the economy. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Bunyato. Do have a good night.